On this edition for Sunday, April 15th, ongoing reactions to the missile strikes in Syria. Washington readies itself for James Comey's book tour, and a photographer's legacy. Next on PBS NewsHour Weekend.
From the Tisch WNET studios at Lincoln Center in New York, Hari Srinivasan.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Less than 2 days after targeted airstrikes on Syria, the United States is preparing to impose economic sanctions against supporters of Syrian chemical weapons programs. Syria is conducting attacks on rebel forces, and the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations says there is a clear message.
And I think one thing that we hope Assad got the message on is the international community will not allow chemical weapons to come back into our everyday life. And the fact that he was making this more normal and that Russia was covering it up, all of that has to stop.
Haley said the new economic sanctions will target Russia and companies that are dealing with equipment related to Syria's chemical weapons. In Syria, the opposition-linked White Helmets group reported that the Syrian regime renewed air raids in rebel-held areas. And Syrian state media reported that President Bashar al-Assad met with Russian officials in Damascus. Assad said Friday's airstrikes were accompanied by a, quote, campaign of misdirection and lies against Syria and Russia, and that the two countries are continuing to work together on fighting terrorism and economic cooperation. A statement from the Kremlin said that Russian President Vladimir Putin and Iran's President Hassan Rouhani had a telephone conversation about the U.S. allied airstrikes in Syria. Putin stressed that if such actions continue, then, quote, this will inevitably lead to chaos in international relations. And President Trump had a new comment today about Syria, defending his use of the term mission accomplished, tweeting, "It is such a great military term. It should be brought back, used often." The president also used Twitter on another subject, his disdain for former FBI Director James Comey, whose book A Higher Loyalty comes out this week. Comey's first interview will air tonight on ABC. In a clip released by ABC, Comey addressed the question of whether his assumption that Hillary Clinton was going to win the 2016 election factored into his decision to publicly disclose that the FBI was reviewing emails in connection to the Clinton probe.
I don't remember consciously thinking about that, but it must have been, because I was operating in a world where Hillary Clinton was going to beat Donald Trump. And so I'm sure that it was a factor. Like I said, I don't remember spelling it out, but it had to have been that she's going to be elected president. And if I hide this from the American people, she'll be illegitimate the moment she's elected.
Mr. Trump attacked Comey for his handling of the Clinton investigation. Quote, in other words, he was making decisions based on the fact that he thought she was going to win and he wanted a job. Slimeball. In another tweet, Mr. Trump refuted Comey's claim that the president asked for loyalty in a private dinner meeting, tweeting, quote, I never asked Comey for personal loyalty. I hardly even knew this guy. Just another of his many lies. His memos are self-serving and fake. Comey, who served under President Trump as well as under Obama and George W. Bush, tweeted, 3 presidents are in my book. 2 help illustrate the values at the heart of ethical leadership. 1 serves as a counterpoint. From the missile strikes in Syria to the forthcoming book from James Comey to legal troubles for his personal attorney, Michael Cohen, President Trump has had yet another complicated weekend. Joining me from Santa Barbara for some perspective on these matters is NewsHour Weekend special correspondent Jeff Greenfield. Jeff, let's start with the airstrike in Syria. Win for the president?
When a president uses force, the initial reaction almost always is favorable. What happens later is where the test comes in. So you have a lot of people saying, well, okay, you've punished Syria for the use of chemical weapons. Now what? Do you still mean to take American forces out of Syria, as you said a week ago? You have a very prominent neoconservative, Elliot Cohen, very hawkish guy, also very hostile to Trump, saying the limited nature of this strike says that you weren't willing to confront Putin. You should have done much more. But as I say, I have a feeling that the half-life of these strikes, assuming it's a one-off, is fairly limited. I think, as you alluded to in the introduction, there are many more issues on the table that's going to affect the president's approval ratings than this.
All right, and one of those issues is a intergalactic book tour being launched by James Comey. It starts on network TV tonight. How significant is it?
To be honest, we're really not going to know the full fallout till we hear the allegedly eyebrow-raising statements that Comey will make on the interview later tonight. What's interesting is that his appearance and his voices, his words, which clearly are aimed mostly at Trump, have not entirely soothed the feelings of Democrats who still point to what he did in the days just before the election, announcing the reopening of investigations into Hillary Clinton's email. They still hold him responsible for the loss of that election. And in fact, it's been suggested that his statement, well, you know, I saw from the polls that Hillary Clinton was likely to win, and I didn't want her administration to come into power under a cloud, also raises a question: is it really the FBI director's business to gauge the political consequences of his action? There have been some fairly strong pushback against him, and not just from the Trump supporters who basically want Comey sent to Devil's Island for the rest of his life.
Another issue that happened this week, the White House is said to be more concerned about the raid on lawyer Michael Cohen's office than anything else that's going on with the special counsel. Why?
Because for 10 years, Michael Cohen has been the go-to guy for the president, not just on legal matters, but all kinds of financial and personal difficulties. To get the stuff that the U.S. Attorney's Office and the feds got from his office, they had to convince the Justice Department officials and a magistrate that there was probable cause to believe in criminal conduct. And in gathering up the correspondence and the tapes and the hard drives, there now is in the U.S. Attorney's Office years' worth of information that could affect Trump, not just in the Russian collusion case, but across his entire public life. That was supposed to be a red line. The president warned Mueller, don't get into this. That's a red line. And that's why the temperature on this issue keeps rising. Every time I think it can't get any hotter, it gets hotter.
Lots of the president's supporters are saying, here's a solution. Fire the Attorney General, fire Rod Rosenstein, get rid of Mueller, stop this train.
Except that you also have, among Republicans in the Congress, the reverse message. You have an almost a pleading quality to some of the statements by Senator Orrin Hatch and Lindsey Graham. Don't fire Mueller. Don't fire Rosenstein. It'll be suicidal. You have Congressman Trey Gowdy, who was very tough on Secretary Clinton a couple of years ago, saying, you know what, Mueller and the U.S. attorneys have done everything by the book. Lay off. And that clash between some of the president's most ardent supporters and the congressional leadership makes for a really sharp contrast in what they want the president to do.
All right, NewsHour Weekends. Jeff Greenfield joining us from California. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Today marks the 5th anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombing. Family members of victims, survivors, and officials gathered to lay wreaths at the site of the 2 explosions near the marathon finish line. Church bells rang, and people throughout the region participated in volunteer and service events to honor the victims and first responders as part of what is now known as One Boston Day. The 122nd running of the Boston Marathon takes place tomorrow. With 22 salmonella illnesses reported, a Midwest company, Roseacre Farms, is voluntarily recalling more than 200 million eggs this weekend. The potentially contaminated eggs came from a farm in North Carolina and were sold in 9 states in stores and restaurants under multiple brand names. A complete list is online at the Food and Drug Administration's website, fda.gov. Starbucks' CEO Kevin Johnson is apologizing for the arrest of 2 African-American men waiting in one of the coffee chain's Philadelphia stores. He's calling the incident reprehensible. Cell phone video shows police confronting the 2 men after the store manager called 911 yesterday. The manager reportedly asked the 2 unidentified men to leave after they asked to use the restroom, but had not purchased anything. The 2 men said they were waiting for a friend and declined to leave. Philadelphia's police commissioner Richard Ross defended the officers.
They were called there for a service, and that service had to do with quelling a disturbance that had to do with trespassing. These officers did absolutely nothing wrong.
Their friend arrived just before the men were handcuffed and taken away. Both men were held for 8 hours and then released. When Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg testified before Congress this past week, there were many unanswered questions, including why users can't always remove data, why and how Facebook is tracking non-users of the site, and what the company considers private information. The New York Times lead consumer technology writer Brian X. Chen took a look at what information Facebook retained about him and was surprised by what he found. As he put it in a word, yikes. He joins me now from San Francisco. So what did you find?
So, I was expecting this to not be surprising or interesting at all. I don't really use Facebook very often. I don't really post very much. I don't really click ads. My profile is pretty slim. So when I opened it, it kind of just blew up in my face. There was this list of 500 different advertisers that had my contact information. Most of those advertisers I had never heard of. There was a list of friends I had deleted over the past 14 years, more than 100 people. And the other things I noticed was there was a complete login history and a history of every time I opened the Facebook app, including which device I used and what day it was. And sometimes the location was tied to that information. So you could see a pretty detailed history of how and when and where I was using Facebook.
Now, what about the unfriended list? That's a little bizarre. The people who you have actively unfriended were still on a list somewhere and you couldn't do anything about that?
Yeah, so I had over 100 people that I had unfriended and the date that I unfriended them. Their explanation was they have a feature called On This Day, which is like a tool to help people reminisce on past memories. So the reason they keep the removed friends list is so that they don't surface memories with those friends that you removed because, you probably hate them or never want to talk to them again or see them again, But I still just found it at odds with Mark Zuckerberg's statement this week, which is that anything you delete is deleted for good.
Let's talk a little bit also about how they acquire information. On your website, accompanying your story, there was a video by one of your colleagues, Kevin Roos, and it looked at what you buy as a category of information that Facebook tries to gather data on. Let's take a look at that clip.
But what most people don't realize is that they have ways of tracking your offline purchases as well. For many years, Facebook has had partnerships with data brokers that collected information about people's purchases. So, for example, if you buy a burrito with your credit card, Facebook could know about that transaction, match it with a credit card that you've added to Facebook or Facebook Messenger, and start showing you ads for indigestion medicine.
All right, so that is something that I don't think most people recognize, is that they don't necessarily have to be a Facebook user.
Right.
There is still a vault of information being gathered about them by this company, in addition to all these other companies that have been in the business of gathering data about us.
Yes, it's generally true that people who don't use Facebook, there's information collected about them as well, especially using these tools called web trackers, which follow your web browsing activities and collect information on things like your IP address, potentially your contact information if you fill out a form, things like that, and advertisers are able to use that to build a profile on you.
With the information that's kind of been revealed in the past couple of weeks and months, how should we be better Facebook users?
Delete your account. I'm just kidding. I think there's a number of things that you can do to minimize the amount of information that's collected about you. You can run these web tracker blockers and use browsers that are more safely guarding your privacy, like the Firefox Focus browser, for example. Tracker blockers like there's one called disconnect.me is quite effective. Beyond that, I would probably tweak my privacy settings on Facebook to share as little bit about yourself as you can publicly, and keep in mind that anything that you upload onto Facebook just might stay there forever because clearly they don't seem to delete things that you remove.
We should mention, and you did so in your article as well, Facebook is not alone in doing this. Google is another company that has a pretty significant vault of information on you.
So Facebook is really just the tip of the iceberg, right? So Google has way more advertisements and trackers running across the web than Facebook. I think out of the million top websites, 75% of them are running Google ads and trackers versus 25% for Facebook.
And what is the justification that these companies are likely to give for tracking users at this granular level? Well, what does it help them do?
The simplest explanation is it helps them serve targeted advertising. And I think the general industry explanation is just simply that targeted advertising is a good thing for the user and of course, for the ad business. So I think they're trying to make the best of both worlds.
All right. Brian Chen of the New York Times joining us from San Francisco tonight. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you for having me.
The art of photography has undergone a radical transformation in the last several decades, with traditional film giving way to digital, and sparkling images created and shared in an instant from the phone in your pocket. But there are some photographers who remain convinced that the old ways are worth preserving. One of them is Oregon's Christopher Burkett, who works slowly and patiently to create some of the highest resolution photographs ever made. NewsHour Weekend Special Correspondent Joanne Elgart Jennings has our story.
From blueberry fields in Maine to swirling veratrum plants in Alaska to a lone cottonwood tree in Utah and resplendent leaves at sunset in his native Oregon, Christopher Burkett has been photographing the American landscape for over 4 decades. He and his wife Ruth have lugged their camera gear across all 50 states.
What we usually do is we go to a place that looks like it has photographic potential, and then we stay there until we don't see any pictures. And that might be half an hour, it might be a week.
On this day, that won't be necessary because we're just in their backyard in Milwaukie, Oregon. Burkett is demonstrating his 8x10 camera. It's the same type Ansel Adams favored for his landscape photography. Burkett says it provides the ultimate in image quality.
It is awkward, it's heavy, it's a struggle with depth of field, struggle with wind motion, but if you get an image, you really have something really in depth to work with.
When Burkett looks through his lens, he says the world he sees is one of indescribable beauty.
If you're really trying to work with photography, you find out real rapidly that seeing things and photographing them can be quite different. And in fact, you have an image that is, from that viewpoint of the camera, is actually higher resolution than you normally experience the world from that viewpoint and that angle. So you have essentially a certain element of, I can't really call it super realism because it's real, but it's more real than what we normally see.
He says he wants to make both the physical and the ethereal accessible.
And to me, again, that's the whole point of doing it, is it's not just to present a pretty picture, but to present something that shows people something that maybe they haven't seen or experienced, and something really worthwhile.
Light and luminosity are critical elements of Burkett's work.
That's what photography is all about, is writing with light. And when you go up to the print, I want light to come out. You know, you don't have to go find it, it's coming out. When I'm looking at a scene, I know what I'm seeing, but then I look to see where the light is coming from and what that color of light is. And many times in photographs, what makes things come alive are opposite colors illuminating a scene, because you get more shape and more color differentiation.
For Burkett, photography is not just an artistic, but a spiritual experience that's informed by his religious faith. As a young man, he spent 7 years as a brother in the Eastern Orthodox Church.
I would come out of church sometimes after communion service, and I would see light in the world, you know, really, truly see light in the world, and I knew it was real. And if it was real, then I figured maybe there was some way I could try to photograph that.
Burkett has also studied meteorology, geology, and functions of the human eye, all to advance his photographic skills. But capturing the images is just one part of the process. Burkett is one of a handful of photographers printing from color transparency film onto a now discontinued paper called Cibachrome.
And it's the only paper that was ever made that had the dyes in the paper when it was made. The processing takes away all the unwanted dye, and you're left with the image itself, which is completely stable because there's no chemical residue in there, there's just dyes in the paper.
Cibachrome was first sold in the 1960s. As photography shifted from using analog film to digital image sensors, many professional photographers abandoned the technique, but Burkett continued to embrace it. In 2011, when the company stopped making Cibachrome, Burkett bought a 10-year supply of the paper.
It's amazing that everything is in focus. It's like you're bringing us there. How do you get that depth where it's, I can, see the bottom of the water there?
Cibachrome has that depth to the image where I don't think any other print material would have that kind of, not just luminosity, but almost seems physically deep, you know. I've had people at gallery openings even kind of go like this to make sure you haven't glued something on the top of the print.
These days, Burkett spends most of his time focused on printing in his studio. He walked us through the elaborate process. One step is called masking.
We make a black and white negative that this is going to be sandwiched with this, and this is going to determine the overall contrast of the print.
Then he adjusts the color.
When you get exactly the right color balance, and then even the slight opposite colors, let's say in the veins of green on a green leaf, will start to pop, you might say, or become more luminous.
And that's when you know you've got it.
Yeah, that's when you know you have it.
But it's the next step that Burkett says is the most crucial.
So light is being projected onto the paper. I'm withholding light by my dodging tools, which is going to darken those areas. And I have to keep the items moving to get a smooth edge so there's no evidence of the darkening of little bright areas.
The process is then reversed with a tool that allows in more light and brightens certain areas of the image. It's an exacting dance, precisely choreographed to a score which Burkett arranges specifically for each print.
You have to plan it out ahead of time where one goes in first and the other one goes in while this is partway there, then you move it to another one, then you have both of them here and both of them there.
How important is timing in this process?
Well, it's extremely important. Sometimes just in the dodging, half a second difference plus or minus and the print's no good, just in one little area.
It usually takes Burkett about 8 hours to make all adjustments he needs to perfect an image. And when it's finally finished,
You take the print like this. I'm going to take it over here very carefully.
Burkett is keenly aware that he has a limited supply of Cibachrome paper, which degrades over time. So he's racing the clock, trying to print as many images as he can before the chemicals in paper lose their effectiveness.
I'm still figuring out how many of different images I want to print as kind of a legacy of my work. And there are many times that I'm printing images now in certain sizes that I know that that's the last time I'm going to print those in that size. So it's kind of a gradual winding down.
While Burkett says he has enormous respect for the work others create with digital photography, once he runs out of his printing paper, he'll hang up his camera.
I also realize there's going to be one day when I leave the darkroom and I turn the lights off, and that's the last time I'm going to be in there. So that's a difficult thing, because I love what I do, and going out and photographing is one thing, but spending time and bringing the light out of these images and to share with other people is really what it's all about.
This is PBS NewsHour Weekend, Sunday.
In Hungary yesterday, tens of thousands of protesters demanded a new election after Prime Minister Viktor Orban won a third term in a landslide victory last week. Anti-government protesters say the current electoral rules are unfair and called for a ballot recount and new electoral system. Current electoral rules gave Orban's right-wing populist party a supermajority in Hungary's National Assembly, even though it won only around 50% of the vote. Orban campaigned against migrants and promised significant changes in his next government. Hundreds of thousands also protested in Barcelona, Spain today, urging the release of Catalan pro-independence leaders being held in prison. 9 Catalan separatists are awaiting trial for their roles in a failed breakaway attempt last year. Secessionist lawmakers in the northeastern Spanish region held an ad hoc referendum on independence last October, defying court orders. Protesters say Spain is violating the rule of law by imprisoning so-called political prisoners. Spain claims the leaders are not political prisoners because they violated the Constitution. And in Myanmar, the first Rohingya refugees are being repatriated after months of negotiations. 5 members of a Rohingya family underwent intense scrutiny at one of 2 reception centers. They were given a form of identification, but not citizenship. The first repatriation comes despite United Nations warnings that it is not safe for the refugees to return home. As many as 700,000 Muslim Rohingyas fled to neighboring Bangladesh to escape military-led killings, rape, and arson in Buddhist-led Myanmar. In January, Myanmar and Bangladesh agreed to complete a voluntary repatriation of Rohingya refugees within 2 years. Explore best-selling author Meg Wolitzer's favorite female-centric books. Visit pbs.org/newshour. Finally, former First Lady Barbara Bush is in failing health tonight and choosing to remain at home in Houston for palliative care. The office of her husband, former President George H.W. Bush, released a statement saying that Mrs. Bush will no longer seek medical care for undisclosed illnesses and that she is, quote, surrounded by a family she adores. Barbara Bush is 92 years old. That's all for this edition of PBS NewsHour Weekend. I'm Hari Srinivasan. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.